But the reality is, if you're living in another country, if you're settling in another country for any period of time, you're an immigrant in that country for the time that you're there. So you need a visa to be an immigrant. Hi there, I'm Estelle Godlewski, an American girl who called the cornfields of Illinois home until over 10 years ago when I started navigating the chaos of life overseas. If you've ever felt that itch for something more, that whisper telling you to break free from the ordinary, you're in the right place. This podcast is your backstage pass to the wild ride of moving abroad. I'm here to pull back the curtain on the real journey, sharing stories that are funny, dramatic, and sometimes downright unbelievable. We'll explore the gritty details, from battling culture shock and navigating tricky visa processes to celebrating those small victories that make it all worth it. So whether you're daydreaming about a new life abroad or already in the thick of it, grab your passport and let's explore what it really means to live life beyond borders. Welcome to A Broadly Speaking. Hi, welcome back to A Broadly Speaking. I'm so excited you're here. I'm Estelle, your host extraordinaire, all things moving, living, thriving, being abroad. I am really excited. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're returning for another episode, welcome back. I'm so glad that you're sticking around and learning more. It's super fun for me to share all of this, and I hope you're enjoying it along the way. Let me know if you are, please. It's always good. Today's episode is all about visas, and I don't mean the credit card. Visas are a thing that allow you to live in a new country for a period of time or indefinitely, depending on the perspective that you're living in. And they're absolutely necessary evils when you move abroad. And I absolutely detest the visa process, but it's part of living and being an immigrant, right? So I hear a lot of times people use expat and not realize that they're an immigrant. But the reality is, if you're living in another country, if you're settling in another country for any period of time, you're an immigrant in that country for the time that you're there. So you need a visa to be an immigrant. Congratulations, or at least not to be an illegal one. I can tell you a lot about the visa processes for Switzerland and for Austria. For other countries, they're going to be completely different, but there's some basics that are really important across all the different countries, no matter what type of visa you're applying for. First, there are so many different types of visas, and you really need to know what type you're applying for before you apply, because the paperwork is vastly different between a student visa and a working visa, between a family reunification visa and between a solo visa for someone who's moving by themselves. So there are a lot of differences, but there are some things that are universally understood and accepted. And let's chat through those, shall we? First, I can say that we had a relocation specialist, a company that helped us with our visa processes in all three moves. So both countries, but all three moves. So when we moved from the US to Switzerland, from the Switzerland to Austria and back, we've had those visas help through an external company. They make sure all the paperwork's filled out correctly. A lot of times the paperwork is only available in the local language and you need to get all these documents together and blah, blah, blah. Just because they help you fill out the paperwork does not mean that they get all the documents for you. That's still on you. And that's what this episode is really all about, is what can you start preparing now so that you're ready when you're actually ready to submit the visa application. And you can already get some of those documents ready for yourself. The number one, most obvious, but I've not always thought of, golden ticket is your passport. You have to have a passport, and you have to have it in the name that you are using. So, for example, the first time I traveled after I moved, my ticket was in my married name and my passport was in my maiden name. And that doesn't work very well. So you need your passport to match the name that would be on your ticket. You need your passport to match the name that you want to be on your documentation in your new country. Whatever your contract is going to be with work, if you're moving for work, all of that has to match. And I know that sounds really silly, because not everybody has a different name, but it's really important that you understand that your passport name and everything else that name is going everywhere with you. So make sure that it's the correct one. The second thing that you can start looking at about your passport specifically is the expiration date. I will tell you that it is a giant pain in the tuchus to get a new passport when you live abroad. It is not a simple process. You have to go to the consulate. You have to show up in person in many cases, and the consulate may not be near you. Our nearest consulate is over an hour and a half away by car or train. Either way, it takes about the same amount of time. We're not allowed to bring, for example, our phones with us. So while we have to park at the train station or get off the train at the train station and walk, you can't have your phone with you because it's not allowed. So there's no Google Maps to help you figure out where the US Embassy is down the street. It's not super simple. When you have to renew your children's passports, they actually have to physically be with you and both parents have to come. It is not the simplest process. So do yourself a favor before you apply for your new pretty visa paperwork. Make sure your passport has enough expiry left that it's reasonable. I would highly recommend renewing your passport shortly before you start your visa paperwork, because the visa paperwork can take a while and you have to have at least a minimum of 6 months on your visa paperwork from the day that you're arriving in the country. So say you're going to arrive the 1st of January, your visa has to be valid until the 1st of July. And when you apply, or I'm sorry, your passport has to be valid until the 1st of July. So if your passport is expiring sometime between the 1st of January and the 1st of July, your visa paperwork will not go through because you won't be able to land in the country. So you have to start backing up and looking back. So that's why I suggest consider renewing, unless your passport was renewed in the last, let's say, 12 to 24 months, consider renewing your passport now so that it has enough expiry when you get the approval and for when you're going to arrive, so that you have plenty of time for your visa application to go through and not have to worry about, oh my gosh, my passport's going to expire. So double check on that before you start. Another note quickly on passports, many children's passports don't last as long as an adult passport. Specifically in the United States, my daughter's passport is only good for 5 years, while mine is good for 10. Just consider taking a look at your children's passport if you're moving with kids and make sure, again, that there's long enough expiry there. Consider potentially applying for both your kids at the same time if they have different expiry dates, just so that you can make one embassy trip per expiration period instead of having to make 2 or however many children you may have, because that is a giant hurdle that is just not good. It's painful to go to the embassy to get your visa renewed, or I'm sorry, your passport renewed. Next, talking about visas and paperwork you can get done early. Some of the things that we needed in both Austria and in Switzerland, so just to consider it, is we needed our birth certificates. For me, as an American citizen, I was born abroad, so I also needed my consulate proof of birth abroad certificate. But we needed all the information about who we were when we were born. And then we needed our marriage license because we were moving as a married couple. We needed our marriage license to show that we were legally married so that we could consider be legally married in Switzerland as well. And that was the same for Austria. Now in Austria, we were required to have documents have an apostille sticker on it. That is different than a notary stamp. So the apostille stamp and the notary stamp are not the same thing. Not the same. It is really, 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 really important that you know that this is different, because the apostille stamp is not something you can just go to your local notary or your local bank to get the stamp. There's specific places that do that. If you're already living abroad, I know for us, when we moved to Austria, we had to send the documents officially to Atlanta in the United States, get the apostille because they were a U.S. document, so the U.S. had to apostille them. We sent them to the U.S., got the apostille in Atlanta, and then they got sent back to us. That took about 4 weeks in total, because there's a long line, apparently, of people asking for things to be apostilled. So just consider that in your timeline when you're considering your move and what documents are required. Some allow notary documents, but many countries require an apostille document instead. So just be wary and be aware, not be wary, be aware of what you need and work from there to start. One of the other really weird documents we needed, which I had no idea what it was a police certificate. Coming from the United States, that was a little bit complicated. In European countries, especially in the 4 that I've experienced, all of them have police certificates that you can get. You just go to your local police precinct and ask for your police certificate. Essentially, it's your criminal history, and you send it in and you're done. Yay. Well, in the United States, obviously there's multiple levels of police. There's local police, there's state police, there's FBI police, for example, right? There's multiple levels of police. So what we ended up having to do is we got our local jurisdiction, our local police precinct gave us a certificate, like a criminal history, to show that we had no criminal history. And then what we asked for was a federal criminal history check, and that is done through the FBI. Yes, I had to go to the FBI and say, hey, can you tell me that I don't have any criminal history, please? Thanks. It's on the website. It is a thing. You do request it. It's not a big deal, but just to be aware that you might have to do that too. And it's a little bit funky the first time that you're like, I'm reaching out to the FBI to go do this thing, and I just buy it. Okay. That's just something to consider, right? The last thing that I'll say about visas is they do expire as well. It depends on where you live, what country you're in, and what type of visa you have on how long they're good for. Specifically, as an example, in Switzerland, for the first 5 years, our visas expire every year. So once every 12 months, we have to get a new one. It requires renewal. There's a bit of paperwork involved. It's not the biggest deal. It's not all the same paperwork, but there's some new paperwork involved. And then, woohoo, we have a new visa. In Austria, for example, my husband's visa lasted for 2 years. Well, mine and my daughter's only lasted a year. That was just based on the type of visa that we had. We had a family reunification and job visa for me. He was the leading quote unquote visa holder. So he had a different kind. And therefore we were able to renew his every 2 years, and ours was renewed annually. Again, there was a lot of paperwork involved in that particular one. We had to go to our local, it's called like a mine. Let me think of that word in English. Essentially like our county seat people. Like you'd have to go to the county registrar's office, for lack of a better explanation in English. But essentially you would go to their office and you had to present in person. Again, it was me and my daughter. My husband had to come with us because he was the primary visa holder. We dropped off all of our documents. They took our picture and we left. That was really the chaos. It was an appointment situation. We were able to make it. But those are things just to consider, that your visas are not permanent. They are renewed for a period of time. Like I said, for Switzerland, it's the first 5 years we have to renew annually. And then we can apply for a longer term, what's called a C permit here, which is like a permanent residence permit, which allows us to stay. We are still, all of this time, we're still US citizens. We still have a US passport. We do not have currently a passport for Switzerland. And so we're still immigrants, right? We still need all the paperwork that we would need as if we were immigrants in the US, the same thing that they need. So it's just something to consider. It's not as simple as just like showing up in the country, knocking on the door and being like, hi, I'm here. Can I have this, document? Can I stay? Thanks. You actually have to go through a bit of rigmarole to get there. But again, it's totally worth it. It's just a little bit of extra effort. We had a baby in Switzerland. Like I said, our daughter was born here in Switzerland and not in the US. So when we had to go through the whole registration process after she was born, so she needed to get a visa to live here, even though she was born here. Again, because she's a US citizen, she was born to American parents. Switzerland does not confer citizenship upon birth. So we had to get her American passport and social security number, et cetera, in order to get her visa here in Switzerland. So it takes a little extra effort. It takes a little bit of finagling to make sure that you're all the way legal, but it's absolutely worth it. Yay. So those are just a few quick things that you can do already to get ready for your visa application process. Again, consider your consider your passport and several things about passports, including expiration dates, as well as names, which seem a little funny, but it's just something to look at. Also, you can start getting some of the certificates that you'll need, your birth certificate, your marriage license, etc. Those are generally required across the board. Your police certificate, if you're requested to get it, just so you know what it is and what it looks like. I wanted to make sure that is something that you have heard of before, so this isn't the first time. And be wary of the notary versus versus apostille requirements, because they are very different requirements as you go forward. But anyway, I hope this was helpful to get you started and just get you thinking about the visa process. If you have any questions, if you have any ideas of more things you want to know about moving abroad, feel free to drop me a line at I am Estelle on Instagram. I'll drop the handle below. And if you need a checklist for all things moving abroad, let me know that as well. I'll drop a link in the show notes for that as well. And that will help you through some of the very high level, what you need to know to move and get you started on your journey abroad. I'm so excited that you're here and that you're excited about your life in another country. And I look forward to chatting with you again next week. Thanks for tuning in to Broadly Speaking. If today's episode got you dreaming a little bigger or thinking a little braver, go ahead and hit subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who's ready for their own adventure. And hey, don't be a stranger. Come hang out with me over on Instagram at I am Estelle for the real, unfiltered life abroad. Keep that passport handy, and remember, life's too short to stay in one place.